Most of the public sector banks, they don't offer unsecured loan for more than 7.5 lakh rupees. In Canada, this trend of having high scholarships up to say 50-60%, that is not very widespread, at least from what I have heard from my friends and other sources in this educational consulting industry.
So say, let us focus on the institutes in Canada. So Rotman, Schulich,
Yes,
Saunders,
yeah,
you have McGill. So all these
McGill, correct.
universities, if you get an admit letter from these universities, you should be able to get an unsecured loan from.
I submitted my application in January 2021 and I got my loan approved in the third week of February 2021, if I'm not wrong. So that is roughly around 40 to 45 days. My course ended in April 2021. After that, I had this moratorium for 6 months. So my repayment started from November 2021. And the good thing about that is once you start repaying your loan, the interest will be charged always on the outstanding principal amount.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Harne Podcast. A lot of people do not pursue their higher education from abroad because the tuition fee is extremely high and the banks do not grant them an education loan if they do not have a property to mortgage. This is the precise problem which we are going to talk about on this episode and try to present a solution for it. Before we begin, I would like to highlight that this is not a sponsored video and I am not getting any money for it. My guest today is Mr. Dinesh Jagadishan, who used to work for a government bank in India and did not take, or rather was not able to secure an education loan from that bank. How did he then pay the tuition fee for his higher education? And how can this process help you get an education loan as well? All this is discussed on this episode. Before we get started, if you find the information valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment in the comment section down below, and don't forget to press that bell icon. Now let's get this conversation started. Hello, Dinesh. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Raghav. I'm glad to be with you for the second time on a different episode of your podcast, and thanks for having me.
Of course, because you have a lot of knowledge to share. So I'm very hopeful that you will come back again and again on this podcast and enrich the listeners with your knowledge. This episode, as you know, Dinesh, is focused on the process of acquiring an education loan. You are the perfect guest for this because you used to work in a bank in India, and yet you did not take an education loan from the bank in India. You applied for a loan from a foreign entity. So can you please tell us about that entity and why did you not take a loan from the Indian bank?
The truth is that Indian banks, as most of us know, is dominated by the public sector banks. So when it comes to lending to education, especially the unsecured loans, the public sector banks in India are very, very conservative. You mentioned rightly, I was working for one of the public sector banks for close to 10 years. And when I got admission to Schulich, the first thing that I did was I spoke to my general manager on the eligibility, the terms, the requirements for the education loan. And most of the public sector banks, they don't offer unsecured loan for more than 7.5 lakh rupees. So in Canadian terms, that would roughly translate to say 22,000 Canadian dollars. Right. And at that time, when I was about to commence my MBA with Schulich, my requirement was much more than that. And unfortunately, I didn't have, and even now I don't have any property under my name or my spouse name. So if you are going to apply for an education loan, which is more than the 22,000 Canadian dollars, then you are expected by the public sector banks in India to offer some kind of property as a collateral. As I was not in a position to offer that, so I didn't have an option to take the education loan from my own bank. That is on one side. On the other side, I am fairly certain that a lot of public sector banks, they have a special education loan policy. So under the special education loan policy, even the bank in which I worked, they have a list of premier educational institutes. So if the university in which you have received a admit offer falls under that list of premier educational institute, then the banks have provisions to extend unsecured loan for up to INR 30 lakhs, 30 lakh Indian rupees. So that would roughly translate to 50,000 Canadian dollars. At that time, unfortunately, Schulich was not in the list of premier educational institutes that my bank had. But if the viewers of your podcast channel, if they are interested in pursuing MBA from those premier institutes in India, like say IIM, Indian School of Business, then that is also an option for such students to take loans from public sector banks in India.
But as we know, this fee for MBA from a foreign university is about, say, roughly $100,000, 1 lakh Canadian dollars. And like you said, even the secured loan will not be sufficient to pay the fee in that case. So then which entity did you approach and how did you get that loan?
Yeah. Before we get to which entity I applied loan for, I think we need to discuss this important part of funding your MBA.
Yeah.
So when we generally decide to do MBA, the first and most important thing that a lot of candidates would focus on would be the institute, the which university or which B school they would be planning to do their MBA from. Uh, After that, in my opinion, the second most important thing is to identify the sources for your funding. So an important but a very critical part of this funding story is preparing a very solid profile, having a very good GMAT score, and to try and secure scholarship as much as possible. In Canada, this trend of having high scholarships up to say 50-60%, that is not very widespread, at least from what I have heard from my friends and other sources in this educational consulting industry. This is what I have been hearing, that it's not very widespread in Canada. But if someone is focusing on getting into some B school in USA, then the scholarship options in US they are widely prevalent. So the first target and aim for the candidates should be to build a very solid profile and have a very good GMAT score. So each university comes up with the median GMAT score for MBA admissions every year. So if your GMAT score is significantly higher than that, then there is a very good chance of a candidate landing up a scholarship. And in my opinion, uh, I would say that GMAT is the most important factor in scholarship decisions, if not the only important factor. So for a university that has a median GMAT score of say 650 or 660, if the candidate has say 700 or 720 GMAT score, there is a very good chance that the candidate may end up with a substantial scholarship. So that will eliminate at least half of your worries. If you're in a position to land up, say, 50 to 60% of scholarships, then that will leave with you only another 40 or $50,000 to manage with, right? And once you are able to do that, or even in case if you fail to secure a scholarship, then let's start thinking about other possibilities like arranging funds with the help of family and friends, then trying to pull together all your savings and fund a portion of your education through your own savings. And then comes taking a bank loan. When I applied for Schulich and when I got my admit offer from Schulich, as I told you before, I didn't have any property in my name or my wife's name to apply for a secured loan. So in that case, Schulich had this financing partnership with 3 or 4 non-banking finance companies. The names that I could recollect right now are Avance Financial, InCredit, and HDFC Credila. So HDFC Credila is the non-banking financial arm subsidiary of the HDFC Bank. And I applied for education loan to all these 4 NBFCs. From one of the NBFCs, I never received a reply. From the other one, I received a reply stating that my education loan application was declined, but they did not state any reason or any explanation for that. And in the third entity, the problem that I had was they were asking for the income tax returns and assets and financial statements of my parents. So they were not ready to take all these documents for my spouse. Actually, my wife was the one who would be paying all these education loan installments if I were to get a loan from them. But they were not prepared to take the information of my wife. So unfortunately, I was not able to secure a loan from any of these non-banking financial companies. Axis Bank was an option as well because Axis Bank offered to extend up to 25 lakhs of loan, so which would roughly translate into $40,000. But after they examined all the eligibility and the credit, and after completing the credit appraisal at their end, they said they could sanction me a maximum loan of 11,000 Indian rupees. Sorry, 11 lakh Indian rupees. In
Okay.
that case, that would roughly translate to say 18 or 19,000 Canadian dollars. But that would have been insufficient to fund my education. So I didn't have any option in India to take an education loan. I had some savings, and my parents supported me to some extent. With all those savings, I was very sure that I could manage the first two term. So when I started my MBA, my plan was to move to Canada for the second year of my MBA, and I also made some research in the internet when I was in India, which told me that if we have a Canadian permanent resident co-signer here in Canada, then Canadian banks will be happy to extend the education loan. So I left to Canada with the plan that my sister-in-law, who was already a permanent resident of Canada, could be a co-signer for my education loan, and probably I could take some education loan from one of the Canadian banks to fund the second year of my education. So that was the plan with which I left for Canada. After I came to Canada, then again the entire story started once again, and my sister-in-law, she was holding a bank account with one of the big five banks. So I don't want to specify any
Yeah.
name of the bank. So she was having a bank account with one of the big five banks, and as I had the plan to take education loan, I opened my bank account with the same bank so that that would make the entire process easy. And I expressed my interest to take the education loan right on the day when I opened the checking and savings account with that bank. They collected all the information, they collected all the documents, and after doing the credit appraisal and credit checks, everything at their end, they came back after a week or so, and they informed me that my sister-in-law was not having enough credit history in Canada because by the time I came here, she had been permanent resident for less than a year on that date. So
Okay.
with 10 or 11 months of credit history, they said the maximum that they could extend was $11,000. So which again was not sufficient even to cover my one term of tuition fee. I was literally left with no option. But again, I was able to pull in some savings from India. My wife was earning there in India. So I was able to get through the third term without a lot of stress and pressure. But when I was almost getting to the end of the third term, I did not have any money to pay the tuition fee for my final term, which was the fourth term. So that's when I started freaking out, and I started running from pillar to post for different available options. And finally, I landed up with this financing institution called Prodigy Finance. It's a very popular name in this education lending industry. Um, I could have learned about Prodigy Finance even in 2019 or 2020 when I started my MBA. But unfortunately, at that time, Schulich was not among the list of institutes that Prodigy Finance was lending. So I didn't have that option when I started my MBA. But thankfully, this option opened up to me during the fourth term. And finally, I ended up getting a loan from Prodigy Finance.
Yeah.
That was a very long story, but yeah, that is the entire background of how I finally landed up with the education loan.
No, thank you for telling us the context under which you applied the loan. And there were a lot of good insights in your answers that you can get funding only up to a certain amount if your co-signer does not have a credit history of more than an year. So I'm sure the listeners will find those informations very valuable. Now, you said that Prodigy Finance now recognizes Schulich as an institute to which they can lend. Are you by chance aware of other institutes within Canada or say other institutions in USA to which Prodigy Finance lends?
Prodigy Finance actually lends to students who have admit offers from a lot of reputed universities. I don't know what was the issue in that specific couple of years. I also heard from my colleagues and friends from Schulich that Prodigy was lending to Schulich students until the second half of that particular decade, 2010 to 2020. But for that brief period of, say, 1 or 2 years, there was some issue because of which Schulich was not being recognized by Prodigy for this lending. And I think those issues were ironed out at a later stage. And that's when I had the option to take this education loan from Prodigy. So Prodigy is a very well known in this education lending industry. And they lend to students who study in almost like top universities across all continents.
Okay, so say let us focus on the institutes in Canada. So
Mhm.
Rotman, Schulich,
Yes,
Saunders,
yeah,
you have McGill. So all these
McGill, correct.
universities, if you get an admit letter from these universities, you should be able to get an unsecured loan from Prodigy. Is that right?
Yes, that is the most important part.
All right. And will Prodigy Finance say someone who does not have funds, so they need entire 100K for their tuition fee as a loan, will that be possible?
100% of lending will not be possible. So it will not be possible with any lender, I would say. I think Prodigy extends loan up to 80%. Again, it's based on your to some extent credit history. We will talk about that loan application process later. To some extent, it depends on your credit history, and for Prodigy, the important aspect is your future potential earnings, your ability to earn and repay their loan, because that's what most lenders, I think, would examine a candidate's application on. And going by that, so no lending institution will extend loan up to 100% for any candidate.
All right. So thank you for that. Let us now talk about the interest rates. So for a secured loan, I imagine the interest rate would be lower versus for an unsecured loan. So what is the interest rates which they charge?
When I obtained my loan, the initial interest rate that I had on my contract was 7.62%. But we should remember that when I took my education loan, we were almost at a zero interest rate regime. So the interest rate in North American markets are close to 0.25%. That's when I got a loan for, say, 7.62%. But the current interest rate, after almost like 1 year of rate hikes, the current interest rate that I am paying is close to 11.6%. So there has been an increase of 4% in the past 4 years. To your question on the interest rate difference between a secured loan and an unsecured loan is, if you're doing this comparison in the same market, I would say there would be roughly a difference of 4 to 5% between a secured loan and an unsecured loan. But a lot of viewers might have this question in their mind. In markets like India, even a secured loan will cost you around, say, 11 to 12%, because that market is entirely different. And both the deposit rates as well as the lending rates have always been very high in India. Whereas if you compare the North American markets, if you go for a secured loan, I think you can even get loan for, say, 2 to 3% of interest rates.
Yeah, and as you rightly said, In North American, the interest rates are lower, but a lot of the international students will not be able to get a secured loan because they don't have any property in Canada or whichever country they
Yeah,
get
if
an
if they
admission
have a
into.
sibling or a family member in North America, then and if that particular family member is willing to support, why not explore this option?
Yes, I mean that's right, but I'm imagining a majority of the candidates don't have that option. So
Yeah.
I was asking with respect to that. So thank you for answering that question. What would you say to people who have both the options available to them? So they can get a loan from an Indian bank, a secured loan, and they can also get a loan from Prodigy, which is an unsecured loan. So if you put yourself in that position, which option would you prefer?
Mm, Again, it depends on whether you're in a position to offer any collateral or not. So obtaining education loan for a high amount without offering collateral is completely ruled out. So that is not going to happen. If you're in a position to offer some property as a collateral, then yeah, you can go for education loan from India, because one important advantage in that particular option is that you'll have some kind of security and peace of mind when you start your education. You can do the same thing with Prodigy Finance. But the problem in both the cases, taking loan from India as well as Prodigy Finance, is the exchange rate. So, in my opinion, the best option would be if we are able to find some source of finance within Canada. That would make the job really easy, because you're going to take your loan in Canadian dollars, you're going to earn in Canadian dollars, assuming that the candidate will continue to work in Canada post education, and you can repay your loan in Canadian dollars. But the problem with both Prodigy Finance as well as taking loans from India is that in both the cases, you'll be repaying the loans in the local currency. For Prodigy Finance, the company is incorporated in Britain, it's incorporated in London, and you'll be repaying your loans in terms of USD, the American dollar. So when I took my education loan in 2021, right? Yeah, when I took my education loan in 2021, at that time the USD to CAD exchange rate was 1.22. That is 1.22 Canadian dollars for a US dollar. But now the exchange rate has fallen to 1.36 Canadian dollar per US dollar. So as I start repaying my education loan, the Canadian dollar has been depreciating for the past 1.5 years, and now I'm ending up paying more than what I initially took as a loan. So we
Okay.
have this risk in both your Indian loan as well as loan from Prodigy Finance. But if you think that you may need to hold on to your property for some other unforeseen expenses, and if you're not personally willing to mortgage your property, then Prodigy Finance would be the best option.
Right. I mean, what I'm asking is for a lot of students, they don't have the property under their name. So probably their parents or somebody else will mortgage that property. So obviously, not paying it back is not an option for them. So they will pay back each and every installment of the loan. But my question to you specifically was like, if they have that option of getting a secured loan from India versus getting that unsecured loan from Prodigy, what do you think is a better choice for them to make, leaving apart the exchange rate risk, which you said that is always there? But if we keep that aside, which do you think is a better option, or what would your recommendation be?
Yeah, Prodigy Finance is definitely a good choice, given that you don't need a co-signer, right? You don't need a collateral. And from whichever country you are, they just sanction you the loan based on your past credit history and your future earning potential. That would definitely be the go-to option for anyone.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering that. And now let's get into the loan application process, as you said. So, what is the process? How do you get in touch with them? How long does it take for you to get that loan? If you could elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, I just created my profile on their website, and so we have the contact us email address through which you can have a regular correspondence. In my case, during the application process, the challenge that I faced was I had already started my MBA and I was almost into the last term of my MBA when I applied for this loan. So for anyone who is planning to go for external funding for their education, the best time would be to apply for the education loan at the start of their program. The problem that I had during the application process was I had stayed in India for the first year of my education, and then I traveled to Canada. So when you submit your application for the education loan, they ask for all the details, including the residential address for the past 5 years. So when I submitted my first application to Prodigy, I had the Indian address there. Then I had my Canadian address, and I submitted all the required documents. And I said that I need the fund. I needed the funding specifically for the second year of my education. And my first loan application to Prodigy was declined because of these anomalies. Then I got into touch with their customer care team, then who guided me on just having the period of education from 2020 to 2021 rather than 2019 to 2021, the first year of which I completed in India. So I just resubmitted my application as per their advice. And after that, my loan application was sanctioned.
Okay. And how long did it take to get that loan approved?
I submitted my application in January 2021 and I got my loan approved in the third week of February 2021, if I'm not wrong. So that is roughly around 40 to 45 days.
So say if somebody, because the application or the intake starts in September, usually we are assuming we go into the fall sem. So if they are starting the education on 5th of September, which is the usual date, they should start applying for a loan from say August.
Yeah, late July or August.
Late July or first week of August. That is when you should start up looking into this option. Thank you so much for that answer, Dinesh. Now, let's talk about the EMI which you had to repay. If you are comfortable sharing the amount which you borrowed from Prodigy Finance, could you please tell us about it?
I borrowed 32,000 US dollars, and which translated into roughly 44,000 Canadian dollars with the exchange rate prevailing on that date. And my monthly EMI, it was initially close to 300 Canadian dollars per month, but with the rising interest rates, now it has gone up to around 380, 385 Canadian dollars a month. That was the latest EMI that I paid.
Thank you. And the next question is, how soon do you have to start repaying this? After, like, once you graduate, how soon do you have to start repaying back?
That was actually a very good question. This is something which each and every candidate, I think, should pay some attention to, at least while signing the loan agreement, if not before. Each loan comes with a payment holiday called moratorium. So once the loan is sanctioned, you continue with your education. Your education is complete on a particular date. And after that, you will have some short repayment holiday so that you have some time to look for the job in the market, find a job, get settled first, and then start repaying your education loan. For the loan that I availed from Prodigy, the loan was sanctioned, as I told before, in February 2021. My course ended in April 2021. After that, I had this moratorium for 6 months. So my repayment started from November 2021. But fortunately, I was able to find a job much earlier, and I started repaying my loan starting from June 2021. You can prepay your loan without any additional fees or penalty. And the good thing about that is once you start repaying your loan, the interest will be charged always on the outstanding principal amount. So the good part is whatever prepayment you are making, a good portion of that will go towards your principal, which would reduce your interest burden in the subsequent months.
And that's wonderful. And as you said, that is the nagging question on the minds of international students when they are borrowing. Like, once we graduate, what if we are not able to find a job quickly? So that is why I asked you that question. Thank you so much for answering that. Now, like, if you could elaborate on the living expenses, because that takes care of the tuition fee. Living expenses, of course, depends on your lifestyle, but let's just cover the rent and the food expenses, a rough amount of what they look like.
Mm, so during my education, I would say the minimum requirement for a student to manage their living expenses, the students staying in hostels specifically in the university housing, it would be roughly say 1,000 to $1,200. And now with the cost of living going up and with the inflationary trend that we are facing, probably you could add say maybe another $100 or $200 to that. It again depends on, as you mentioned, the kind of housing that you choose. The university in which I studied, Schulich had three different housing options, and all those three came up. All those three housing options came up with different pricing, and it depends on whether you're moving into the campus as a family or whether you're coming in there as a single student staying with other friends, and so there are a lot of different things that this living expense depends on.
Yeah, but I mean, if we take the example of somebody who is not living with family, sharing a room with a friend, so that roughly translates to, say, about
Yeah,
1200,
1,200. Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
1200, 1200 to 1500, within that range. I think that
yes,
should cover your
that should
living
be
expense.
sufficient.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for your answers, Dinesh. I think they are very insightful and will provide a lot of valuable information to our listeners. Do you think anything I might not have covered during the course of our conversation, because you have been in that exact same situation? Anything which you would have wanted to know and we haven't covered in our conversation?
Uh, Thanks, Sagar. First of all, I'm glad that I could be of help to your viewers who are looking to pursue their postgraduate journey. One thing, it might not be very important, that needs a very detailed discussion, but a quick couple of cents from me. So whenever we apply for education loan, we should always think also from the perspective of the lender. So even if Prodigy offers you loan without any collateral, without any co-signer, but they would always like to know your net worth, because that is what gives them some kind of assurance that you will not default on your loan, right? And so when I applied for my Prodigy loan, I had a couple of important things at my disposal, and I made sure that I made the best use of those options that I had. So my mother-in-law, she just superannuated few months before I started my MBA. So she had her retirement corpus in her bank account, and though we are not pledging anything as collateral, I made sure that I got a letter from her bank saying that this is Mrs. So and so, and she's having a deposit of so much amount in our bank. And with that, I also prepared a letter which stated that in case of any funding requirements, or if I'm finding it difficult to repay my loan, my mother-in-law will take responsibility for that. And the bank has already provided an evidence saying that this is the net worth of my mother-in-law, and she'll be in a position to support him if need arise. So that kind of additional efforts or some additional supporting documents would give that extra comfort to the lender. That would always increase the probability of your loan getting approved. So if any candidate applying for the loan considers that they have some savings options here and there, it is always best to pull everything together, get some kind of supporting document from the institution on that. And if they put this as the supporting document when they submit their loan application, then they have a good chance of landing up education loan.
Right. Yeah. But as you said, you have to also think from the point of view of the lender. So you have to make it easier for them to give you money. And if you make some additional efforts to that, the chances of you getting the loan increase.
Yes, and also more importantly, if for some reason you're not in a position to start your repayment within the first due date, then it is always better to reach out to the lender as early as possible before you get into the trouble, and negotiate with them for some kind of rescheduling of the loan. So banks always have this option. No lender would be interested to declare their lending portfolio as a non-performing asset. Instead, they would always like to negotiate with you and try to find some mutually convenient agreement for both the lender as well as for the candidate. So for any unavoidable reason, if that is the situation you're in, then it's better to reach out to the lender as early as possible and try to reschedule your loan or extend the moratorium period, or try to reduce the monthly installment by extending the tenure of the loan. Those are some other options if candidates have real trouble in repaying their loan.
Definitely. And apart from Prodigy Finance, do you know of any other lenders which provide unsecured loans to international students?
I came across a couple of names, but unfortunately, my memory is not serving me. I'm not able to remember the name right now, but I'm fairly sure that there are other lending agencies in the market that provide unsecured loan for education.
Right. So a simple Google search would be able to help the
Yes.
candidates, whoever is interested in obtaining such loans. So just to summarize our conversation, I think the most important thing would be to get an admission into a reputed university, a university which the lender is has some
Mhm.
confidence that okay, they can lend you if you get an admission to that university. Secondly, if you have some additional documents to support that you will be able to repay the loan, say a relative or a friend is able to give you some letter that he has or she has this corpus in her bank, and if you fail to give your repayment for some unavoidable reason, they are happy to pitch in during that time. Also, if you have some trouble paying it back, you can always negotiate with your lender that I'm facing such and such trouble, so could we come to an agreement where I can maybe delay my payment or whatever may be suitable in your position. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very beautiful summary.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dinesh. And I hope you come back again. Every time I talk to you, I come to know of new things. So I hope you keep coming back again and again on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tado. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And that was the episode for this week. If you found the information valuable, please like this video, leave us a comment in the comment section down below, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends or someone whom you think might benefit from this information. Until the next time, this is your host, Raghavendra Harne, signing off. Take care.